Hello good people of the internet and welcome to another Digidope video. Today we are not discussing Intel Arc. We are however going to be talking about an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2080. Why are we talking about a 2080 instead of the Intel Arc? We do have new videos in the pipeline, so stay tuned for those. However, someone gave me a 2080 to test for them that they were having some trouble with. It's running really loudly and let out the magic smoke. But as you can see behind me, it's actually running 3D Mark right now. So we know that the card still functions, but we don't know if there's any damage or if there's problems with the fans. We're going to tear it down, have a look at it, which means we're probably going to, well, we will have to repaste it, and we'll probably replace any damaged or worn, dried thermal pads. So why don't we get this card out of here and have a look at it and see what we can do. Alright, so the card's out of the computer. Let's have a look at what we're going to be using to work on it. So, to tear it down, obviously we're going to need some screwdrivers. So we have a Phillips number 0 and then a smaller, what is this guy? This is a 00 by 50 millimeter. So this will be for the small backplate screws, and this will be for pretty much everything else. The shroud itself looks like it's actually got torque screws on it, and we may need to take that off in order to remove the fans to check them. So I've got a selection of torque bits here. I believe they look like they're between a T5 and a T7. And then of course we're going to clean the card. We'll use isopropyl alcohol to remove any thermal pad or thermal paste that's stuck on. And then we'll use blue shop towel or this, I don't remember what these kind of brushes are called, to clean the card. And then we have Arctic Silver 5 for thermal paste, and then we have 3 sizes of thermal pad here. So we have 1 mil, 2.5, and 3 mil thermal pads. So that should pretty much cover any situation we run into. Yeah, so let's start tearing this down and see what we can find. So let's start the teardown and see what went wrong with this card. You can see on the back here there's a whole lot of screws for the backplate. We wouldn't have to remove them just to get the heatsink off, but because we want to examine the board, it is going to have to go. Let's get started here. Well, clearly this is going to take a while. We probably want to pick up the pace. Hold on to your hat. Well, I struggled with that backplate a lot more than you would have thought. Mostly because EVGA hit a screw here under this sticker. Naughty EVGA. There we go. See that there are some thermal pads here on the back of the backplate. So that's good. I'll just give this a quick dusting. Move that backplate out of the way. Okay. Well, let's have a look and see if we can see any obvious damage. Just going to grab my magnifying glass 1 second. There we go, that's better. Get a little more of that dust out of the way just so it's easier to see. This section's looking pretty good. Nothing over here by the I/O that I can see. This is the VRM, memory, little bit of thermal pad there. Yeah, I don't see any obvious signs of damage. Alright, let's get this heatsink off. It should just be these 4 screws. Untightening them in a bit of a torque sequence here. Okay, so the heatsink should separate from the card. There's no additional screws. We'll likely just have a fan header connected somewhere underneath the card. Thermal pads are holding a little tight. Just gently work it away. Just working it back and forth, separating it with my, there we go. Okay, so the fan header is on the rear here. Just move this around so you can see it. Grab a slot screwdriver here to pop that connector off. There we go. Okay. Thermal paste seems a little dry. It's not too bad. So this thermal pad seems to connect through the mid plate to the back of the heatsink here. This mid plate's different than what I've seen on other cards before. Bit of an interesting design. Looks like it contacts the memory. Let's see if we can't separate that. No screws, it's just popping right off. More thermal pads underneath. This thermal pad looks like it's seen better days. We'll probably replace that one. It's definitely dried out a little bit. You can see that some of it's on the mid plate and on the card still. Let's start cleaning some of this dust off around the GPU. No obvious damage here by the I/O. Just clean a little more off. Nothing obvious, nothing by the VRM there. Let's get rid of this thermal pad. Use the pick here just to get the last little bit that's stuck on the VRM and in between. A little bit of alcohol to get that GPU cleaned up. There's some small SMDs on the side of the GPU here, so I'll probably use a Q-tip to clean those up. That's starting to look a little better. Quite a bit of paste coming off on that Q-tip end. another quick wipe here, just finish cleaning it up. Finish cleaning up the remnants of that thermal pad off the VRM here. See that lovely T104 GPU die. So we're going to need to remove the back of this thermal pad here. Should scrape right off fairly easily. It's definitely dried out a fair bit, so you can't peel it off. You gotta scrape it a little bit. It's breaking up into pieces. Get that last little bit off. Wipe it down with a bit of alcohol just to be safe, and maybe clean up a bit of the rest of the mid plate here. It's looking pretty good. Let's clean off this heatsink. Oh, that's a lot drier than I thought. It's coming off nice, but it was really dry. That looks nice and clean. Let's remove these fans and check if they're serviceable. I may have to remove the shroud to get the fan out, but let's see. I hope not. It'd be an inconvenient design. I don't see a way to get the fan cable out without removing the shroud. Well, that's unfortunate. Okay, well, I guess I'll have to find my torque bits here. We'll get that pulled off in a second. My set here only goes down to T7. Seems like it's just a little bit too big, but I think I can get enough purchase on the screw head to remove them. Yeah, I think that's going to work. Okay, I'll need to find my driver. Yeah, that's in there, good. So these are smaller than a T7. The screw heads do stick out quite a bit though. If you can't get them with the driver, you can probably get a small pair of pliers or wrench on there to turn them. There we go. Alright, all the screws are out. I did have to use a pair of pliers once. Let's get this fan out. Let's clean up these blades a little bit. They're looking pretty dusty. Okay, let's see if we can get under this sticker on the fan hub here. If we can get access to the hub, we can find out if it's serviceable. Some have rubber or plastic grommets on the back that you can remove. Let's see. Looks like another sticker. Sometimes it is just a sticker. No, I don't think so. I can see the circuit board. It doesn't look like anything happened there, but I don't think this is a serviceable hub. Nope. Some hubs allow you to pop that center out to add oil, and so normally you just put 1 or 2 drops of machine oil in there and that fan would run forever. So in this case, if the fan goes, we'll need to replace it. Put the label back on there. So let's have a look. This is a PowerLogic PLA09215S12H. So you should be able to find those on Amazon or eBay for a reasonable price. There should be some on the screen now. I think they're around $17 to $25 Canadian. Okay, so now we're going to measure out some thermal pad for the replacement. So it's too long for that side. Let's just turn this around and cut another section out. Just put a little mark here. We'll take the cover off. So now I'm going to use the mid plate as a straight edge. This doesn't have to be perfect, so if it's not perfectly straight, don't worry about it. I just like it to look nice. Not that anyone's ever going to be able to see it under the heatsink. Peel this guy off. Come on. There it is. And then just lay it back on the back of the mid plate where you scraped the old one off. This stuff feels a little bit like silly putty if you've ever worked with that. There we go. Okay. I think that's got it. We've got the memory pads back on. We're going to reattach the mid plate. Pretty much just line it up. There's no screws holding it in place. You should be able to tell. You give a little push down, the thermal pads will help hold it in the correct spot. That looks good. Time to apply the thermal paste to the GPU here. A little bit of Tim goes a long way. In this case, as we mentioned earlier, we're using Arctic Silver 5. Just something we've been using for a couple decades now. Get the fans back on the heatsink and secured. And then we will mount the GPU to the heatsink. Sort of the opposite process if you're used to doing it with a CPU. It's a lot easier in this case, usually anyway, to put the CPU or the GPU down on top of the heatsink. Because you can look through the back of the card and see where the bolt holes line up to attach it. And there we go. We'll reinstall in reverse of removal, so another torque pattern. So top right, bottom left, top left, bottom right. You don't want to tighten quite all the way. Get them snug and then go back around and tighten each one down until the spring stops compressing. A little bit of a better view there. Just snugging it up. That one was a little looser. Always wise to go around after you've secured them, because tightening one side may loosen another off as the heatsink shifts. Okay, backplate's aligned. Screw this guy back on. I'm not going to make you watch this whole thing. But basically just start from the middle and work your way out. There we go. We've got an almost fully reassembled GPU. Plug that fan cable back in now while it's easily accessible without the shroud on. Just use a screwdriver to press that connector in. Reconnected. Time for the shroud. Pop this guy back on and screw it in. Alright, looks like we're all reassembled. Alright, so the GPU is back in the system, fully assembled and ready to go. Now, we need to do some comparisons. Before we took it apart the first time, we ran it through a stress test in 3D Mark, and it did a 20 run pass. During that pass, we saw things like the GPU temperature was 73 Celsius. The hotspot was 107.3. The fans ran at about 3,870 RPM. Pretty loud. Those, I'm sure, was the noise he was complaining about. The core clocks on the GPU boosted to about 1890 megahertz, and the GPU used about 230.36 watts. So fairly average, nothing special there other than the fans were really loud. After the repaste, the GPU temperature was 77 Celsius, an increase of 4C. At first I thought, oh man, there's a problem. I'm going to have to take it apart and try a remount. Because the room temperature stayed within about a half degree, so that was nothing that would cause that problem. But then we looked at the hotspot, and the hotspot had dropped to 95.2 Celsius. So that's a change of 13.1 C. That's pretty significant. More significant is that the fan speed was now only 2240 RPM, down from 3860. That's 1630 difference. Maybe it was 3870. 3870. So 1600 RPM less is so noticeable. It's very quiet now. I mean, it's just a regular computer hum as opposed to whatever the user was complaining about before. It was so loud. Interestingly, the core clocks did climb as well. So possibly there's a little bit of throttling before because of that hotspot. The clocks are now at 1935 megahertz, which was a gain of 45. Nothing major, but free performance and a quieter GPU, hard to complain. And it was now drawing 229.14 watts, so 1.22 watts less. That's within margin of error. Is your GPU making a little bit of extra noise these days? Maybe you want to consider doing some basic maintenance of your own. We'll have all the products listed below that we used, or links on Amazon where you can find them. But a cooler GPU, a faster GPU, and a quieter GPU is a big W in anybody's book. So I recommend you give it a try for yourself. If you found this video useful, please give us a like and subscribe and tell your friends about us. And if you do want to see more content, please check back to see our new ARC videos. Or if you'd like to check some out now, there should be some linked above. That's it for today. Goodbye!